Welcome to Transform with TAS. I'm your host, Dr. Teresa A. Smith, also known as Dr. TAS. Transform with TAS is where we take recipes that we really love, that just warm our heart, remind us of our mama, our nana, and we transform them because we know that mama and nana's food is really, really good, but it's not always good for us. So we transform recipes. At the same time, we're transforming our souls. We have interviews that feed our soul. On today's episode, we're going to be grilling. So I'm going to step away and get my hat, and I'll be right back.
Dr. Teresa A. Smith, also known as Dr. TAS, Graves' disease and gastric sleeve surgery protein-focused home cook and talk show host, feeds your physical, mental, and spiritual body. Time to transform with TAS.
Well, we're back, and I've got my grill on, so that's where the noise is coming from. And if someone would say, you're going to have to speak louder, but luckily I'm mic'd, so hopefully you'll be able to hear me. So I've got my grill heating, and I just felt like I needed some red meat. Now, I know folks are going to say, red meat, yes, red meat. Now, red meat, of course, is going to be full of iron, but red meat is hard for our body to digest also. Pork and beef, it takes longer for it to digest throughout our system, so some people say we should stay away from red meat. I don't have a preference. I really don't eat a lot of red meat, but sometimes you just have a taste for a steak. So we're going to be grilling today. Now I'm letting my grill heat up, but I've already grilled some steaks. So when you see me put this last steak on, I want you to know that's the reason why the grill is not clean. I just took 2 steaks off because I wanted to make sure they had a chance to rest before I actually cut into it to taste. But also, I wanted some, what goes with steak? Potato, French fries. Well, those are carbs. And potatoes, sometimes break down our body. And for some people, it may increase their glucose. So I decided, okay, let's do something different. We're not going to have a baked potato. And so we're not going to have French fries. So I've decided we're going to have turnips. Now this is a turnip. This is a root vegetable. Now I'm from the South. I don't know if you know much about turnips, but I believe my daddy said to me there's white turnip, there's purple turnip, but this is a turnip. And greens grow out from it, and they're called turnip greens. And I'll have to do a dish sometime to show you what I do with my turnip greens. They're really good. But I said, okay, if I can't have a potato, but I'm gonna have steak and I want something that's almost like a potato, why not make turnip fries? So I'm gonna have turnip fries that will accompany my steak. Now I'm looking down here at my grill. It's still preheating, okay? But I want to tell you about my turnip fries. When you see them, they're gonna be somewhat steak fries. I didn't want shoestring turnip fries because I didn't want them crunchy. I like them sort of like I said, like a steak fry. And so that's the way I've cut them. They're sort of wedgy. I didn't really use a huge turnip because I didn't have one. Also, I grew up with the thought that when certain vegetables get really big, then they lose some of their flavor. And turnips are somewhat peppery anyway, and a lot of folks don't necessarily like them, or they're just accustomed to eating them with their turnip greens. Now I will tell you, I love turnips, and normally I just boil them, add a little salt, a little pepper, a little garlic, a little onion, and just a dab of light margarine. And they get mushy, sort of like a mashed potato consistency, but turnip fries I have found are just absolutely delicious. And when you have a hankering, I got to make fun of it, when you got a hankering for a French fry, this is the way to go. Also, it's got protein and it's filled with lots of vitamins. And we always are looking for other ways that we can get our vitamins in. So this is still heating up. Now I want to talk to you a little bit about my steak. I marinated 3 steaks, 3 petite steaks. And this is the last one, and it's the smallest of the petite steaks. Oops, it's telling me that it's ready, and you know I'm still talking now. So let me get the steak on the grill. And as you can see, I had two steaks that were already there. Now some people would say, oh, that you done seasoned your grill. So it's gonna really taste well. So we're gonna take these steaks out. Well, I said these steaks because they're kind of, it looks like it's two, but it's really just one. We're gonna take this little steak out. And I'll tell you about my marinade. Gonna put that on. Oops, the tongue almost got away from me. And I'm gonna adjust the temp, or the time rather. We're gonna bring it down to about 3 minutes. I made a teriyaki steak marinade. And so I used some oil and I put just a little bit of light brown sugar, some pepper, black pepper, Worcestershire sauce, some soy sauce, garlic powder, a little honey because I wanted some natural sweetness. The brown sugar, like I said, it was really just a little pinch, but I put probably about, with this bag here, I probably put about a teaspoon of honey. And as you can see, this is a gallon bag that I then put everything in, the honey, the onion powder, the garlic powder, and all the other. And I put it in here, and I let this marinate overnight. Because for me, the longer it marinates, the better it's gonna get. Did I put a little salt? I really decided I wasn't gonna put any salt because I think sometimes that when you add salt, it sort of masks some of the other flavors, and I really wanted my meat to just sort of breathe and be natural. And I figured by doing the teriyaki sauce or marinade, that would bring so many flavors that I didn't really need a lot of salt. But of course you can add salt, you know, but I just did not. Now we've got about 27 more seconds, and then I'm going to turn over our steak. So it's almost time for me to flip the steak over. Now let's see if I can turn it without getting really dirty. And I think I'm gonna go ahead and open this one up because this is a small steak and I don't want it to get, oh yeah, it's coming. I don't want to dry it out, okay? Can you guys see that? I wish you could smell it. Smells good. So I'm gonna put it back in and let's see if it's gonna let me do what I wanna do. And I'm doing another 3 minutes, okay? Now, while that's cooking, I'm gonna talk just a little bit about my turnip fries again. Now, these turnip fries are good. And I thought, well, how are you gonna serve them? I'm gonna serve the turnip fries with ketchup. Now, some people may say, you're gonna have ketchup? Yes, I'm gonna have my sugar-free ketchup. Nobody likes it but me. A friend of mine called me and said, oh, I shouldn't tell this on camera, but I'm gonna tell it. She called me and said, you know, I bought the ketchup that you talked about and it has an aftertaste. I said, an aftertaste? I said, I don't taste it. And she said, yeah, it has an aftertaste. And she's like, I'm gonna give you the bottle. I'm like, okay. And I said, such and such brand? And she's like, yeah. And she said to me, I really like ketchup. I said, okay. So you eat ketchup on just about everything? And she said, yes, I eat lots and lots of ketchup. I said, okay, I'm not a ketchup person. I only ate ketchup on certain French fries. You know, I will tell you, when I used to go to McDonald's or Mickey D's, as we call it, I never put ketchup on my fries. When I would go to Wendy's, if you're familiar with Wendy's, I never put ketchup on my fries. I only put ketchup on my steak fries. And so for me, I don't taste the aftertaste. It tastes just like regular ketchup to me. But she said, She's like, you can have my bottle. I said, okay, I'll take it. So this is at 1 minute and 25 seconds. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna step away, I'm gonna come back, and we're gonna have steak, and we're gonna have turnip fries. And I'll be right back. Well, welcome today to my kitchen. I am so happy you guys can join me. I have Jacquelin Thomas, an award-winning, best-selling author with more than 85 published books. You've heard me, 85 published books. You may recognize her name as she's the author of the Jezebel series. You know that Jezebel, we know her. Her books, Jackie's books, have garnered several awards. She's including two Emma Awards, a Romance and Color Reviewers Award, Reader's Choice Award, and the Atlanta Choice Award in the Religious and Spiritual category. Jacqueline's first book, her first book, can you imagine this? Her first book was made into a movie. The book was entitled Hidden Blessings, and of course, she was honored in Houston at the Black Film Festival for that piece of work. Now, I could go on and talk about her accolades, but I don't want you to miss any of the time that we're going to spend with Jackie today. So I'm just going to say sit back, grab your some iced tea or some other type of beverage. We're in the kitchen and just hang on because we're going to ride with Jackie and find out everything we can about writing. But maybe we'll find out some things also that you don't know about Jackie that you think, I can't believe that. She's got a devious mind because she's an author. So, Jackie, welcome, welcome, welcome to my kitchen. And how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I am doing wonderful. How are you?
I am doing good, Jackie, but I'm just an aspiring writer. I'm working on maybe my fourth book, but
Hey,
to
you're
be
no longer aspiring. You are an author. You need to own it.
well. See how this is my coach, just in case you guys know, this is my writing coach, and she's already coaching me. She's telling me to own it, and she's right. So you guys own what you're doing too. You're right, Jackie. I'm no longer aspiring. I'm an author
That's
now.
right. You're an author.
But to have written more than 85 books and you're still writing and that drive is still there, how do you keep that drive going day after day?
I love writing. It is my passion. You know, growing up, I was really shy. And so writing was my outlet. I didn't really talk to people. I was just so shy. And I wasn't one for arguments and drama. If someone wanted to, um, I guess you would say I was kind of, they tried to bully me when I was little.
Mhm.
The only difference is, even though I didn't talk, I would fight. And so, you know, I'd let you talk. And when I got tired of you talking, I started every fight I was ever in. And that was because I didn't want to go, shut up, you're gonna go make me, and then I'm gonna just go on and punch and just cut out all the other stuff. And so I would just punch you in the face, and then I get in trouble, you
Right.
know. But it didn't last very long because people, word got around school pretty quick that even though I was very quiet, I wasn't timid, but I was
Mhm.
just really shy, but I would fight. So,
Okay.
if you come for me, I'm going to answer. And so, but see now, I've outgrown all of that. I now realize that when people have issues with me, it's their issue, not mine. You know what
Mhm.
I'm saying? And so, not that I don't really have drama in my life right now anyway, thank goodness. But you know what I'm saying? There's usually, when people have issues like that, there's something going on at home, there's something wrong. There's something they're not happy about. And
Mhm.
so we have to, if I could have a do-over, um, I probably wouldn't have talked, but I probably could have written a good letter to say, hey, I like you, peace and love, no fighting, you know. I wish that I probably could have found another way to resolve those issues back then, but you're young, I've learned a lot since then, so I'm not so quick to punch these days, you know.
Now, you said if you could do a do over, you would probably have written a letter. Now, do you draw inspiration for your work from your childhood and just the situations that you encountered during that time?
Especially for my young adult novels, I do. Because I think it's pretty universal. Times have changed. Kids now are so different from when I was a teen. But I think those main issues are still there, where we go through that period of where we just don't like our moms not as much as we used to. We want to be grown. We want to make our own decisions. We think we know everything. And so I do draw on that because I did go through those periods. I
Mhm.
remember it, right? And I always wrote in journals.
Mhm.
So I remember writing about my grandmother and how frustrated she made me and how she didn't love me because she wouldn't let me go to parties. She
Mhm.
wouldn't let me, like, I never learned to ride a bike. I never learned to skate because my grandmother, number one, it wasn't ladylike. Number two, she was afraid that I would hurt myself. And so I learned, now having studied psychology, my grandmother taught me how to fear. It was learned behavior because she worried constantly about me getting hurt. And when I became a mother, I picked up those same traits and I worried about my kids to the point that my husband kind of had to sit me down and it's like, look, you got to let them be kids, you know? And so I had to learn to just trust God because He's the best security guard. He's the best security system. I just had to trust him. And, my grandmother was a Christian. She loved the Lord, but she was a chronic worrier and she was very protective of me. So I wasn't allowed to do a lot of things as a child, swim, any of those things, because she went to the worst case scenario. And, so for me, writing about it, I would write that I could do all those things. I would write about swimming in the water. I would write about riding a bike and running into a tree because I didn't know how to
Mhm.
stop.
Yes.
I would write about those things and I would write about my frustrations and her not letting me do those things. And she read it one day and I saw the hurt on her face. And it just hurt my heart because I wasn't trying to hurt her feelings. Like I told her, I was trying, I needed to vent. I
Yes.
needed an outlet. And it did frustrate me. And she was like, I can't let you get hurt. I mean, I thought maybe after she read it, she would, go out and buy me a bike and, do all those things, some skates. No, no, that never happened. So I'm probably the only person in the world who doesn't know how to skate or ride a bike, but it is what it is. I'm okay with it. But my kids know how to ride a bike. My kids know
Okay.
how to skate. My kids swim. I let them do the things I wasn't able to do. And there are times, when I think about getting on a bike and just going for it, then I remember I am 61. Um, I have two new knees. Therefore, I think I'm going to just, in my books.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes.
And that's a good point, Jackie. You can live vicariously through your characters and what
Yes.
characters you have. Now, for those who are aspiring writers, because I know some of these things because she is my writing coach. Um, where do your characters come from? I'm really thinking about the Jezebel series. Where do they keep coming from? Where do these people keep coming from?
Well, they come from everywhere because I people watch. I'm very observant. And I always, whenever, we're traveling or whatever, or whenever we're out, I may see a certain person and, I can kind of read emotions. And so it makes me wonder, what's going on with them? You know, why does she look so unhappy? Things like that. But with Jezebel, Jezebel was actually inspired by Jezebel in the Bible. And what happened, I was always intrigued by Queen Jezebel, mainly because I was looking for a scandal. Because in church, like I said, my grandmother was in church. She was the woman who walked around with the scarves and the blankets, the throws, shawls and the throws. And so if I were to go to church, like in this dress, first of all, she would never let me do that. But um, if I were to do that, she would have given me a shawl and pinned it. She had all these little, she would have made sure that shawl didn't fall.
Yes,
And if you had on a dress when you sat down, that went above the knee, she would cover you.
Mhm.
So later at home, she and my aunt would be talking, and my aunt, she was my great aunt because it was her sister,
Mhm.
and they would be talking, and I would just be in the room because they always talked about all the good stuff,
Yes.
and I hear them talking about that Jezebel. So I knew enough that Jezebel was like a cheap woman.
Mhm.
So I wanted to know about this cheap woman in the Bible.
Mhm.
And it's a shame to say, well, I'm just going to be honest. I went to read about Queen Jezebel in the Bible because I wanted to know how trampy she was.
Mhm. Mhm.
And, you know, God, I always say God has a sense of humor. He used my curiosity about this trampy woman to get me to read the Bible. And when I read about her, it was nothing like that.
Mhm.
It was about a woman who was hungry for power. There was nothing in there about her being unfaithful to her husband or being a tramp. She was hungry for power. And later, as my faith grew and my studies increased in the Bible, I learned that it was more so that she had what they call a Jezebel spirit. And there's also a Ahab spirit, and they're commonly found in the church, which was interesting for me as well, because I was intrigued by Queen Jezebel and the fact that she could scare Elijah. I'm like, oh wow, she's tough. She's tough. And like I said, I like women that are tough. I don't necessarily think I'm one of them, but that would be my alter ego, like this
Mhm.
really bad, like crazy woman that isn't afraid to speak her mind, do whatever she wants to do. That's not me. I actually have manners, but sometimes you just want to kick those manners to the side and say, hey, this is the way it is. But I was intrigued by that. But at the time when I wrote the book, I wanted to write it not so much about her being a tramp, but more so, or her being, well, it was about her being power hungry, but I wanted to really shed light on the Jezebel spirit and how it's not just a female spirit. It can be a man, a man in the church can have a Jezebel spirit.
Mhm.
Anyone that wants power and is willing to do whatever he has to do to get it, that's
Mhm.
someone with a Jezebel spirit. However, a Jezebel spirit cannot reside without a Ahab spirit. So there has to be a member of leadership in the church that allows this to go on. And if not, guess what? That spirit moves on.
Mhm.
So that's why it's important that our leaders in churches be covered, you know. And I don't want to bash a minister or anything like that, but you have to be aware that some of them may have a Jezebel spirit,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
know. And so I learned a lot about the Jezebel spirit and wanted to shed light on it, but not so much to bash anybody. It was more so to educate and to become aware, but also to entertain.
Mhm.
My books are to entertain, educate, and inspire. And also, one of the things I did realize that I wanted in my book that didn't happen in the Bible, Jezebel, there was no redemption for Queen Jezebel.
Mhm.
There was no redemption for her.
Mhm.
When you write Christian fiction or books, inspirational books, there should be some form of redemption. Now, I don't want to say you get redeemed and everything lives happily, you live happily ever after. That's not realistic. God forgives us, you know. And I'm sure if Queen Jezebel had humbled herself and asked for forgiveness, God would have forgiven her. However, there were still consequences for her actions. So we still have consequences. In my book, Jezebel,
Mhm.
she was redeemed, but there were consequences to her actions that she had to live with. And so that's basically the inspiration for Jezebel was Queen Jezebel in the Bible. And, the thing about it was, I wrote that book, gosh, it's been about 15, almost 20 years ago. There was never going to be a sequel, but she would not leave me alone. So it was what, 11 years later, I think, 11 or 12 years later, I got the idea for Jezebel's daughter. So I'm like, I remember in the Bible there was something about a daughter. So I went back to the Bible, and man, I found out her daughter was worse than her.
Ooh.
She killed her own family to, take the throne. And I'm like, oh, wow. So, of course, Jezebel's daughter. And then there became Jezebel's revenge. And then there became Jezebel's redemption. But between revenge and redemption, I had to go back and do Jezebel the prequel. And the reason why is because for redemption, I needed readers to understand where all of this came from, because it doesn't just appear, you know. We are affected by our surroundings and our environment growing up. We don't just suddenly decide to become mean. There's a reason why. There's a seed somewhere that was planted. So I needed to go back and talk about Jessie Bell's mom and how that seed was planted with her mom for her to become a modern day Jezebel. You see what I'm saying? So that's how that series kind of evolved, and they still won't leave me alone. There's still two more books I need to write in that series, and hopefully they will go away. I love them, but I want to write some more stories, But these characters are like, no, no, you still need to tell this story, and you still need to tell this story. And so there are two more that I will eventually write.
Well, I think those of us who follow the Jezebel series, that was good news for us to hear that there's at least two more. Because when I think about it, it's like a journey. You call it evolution, but it's a journey of our own lives. To see how something can take hold and how it just goes from person to person within a family. And I think that's the reason why folks are so fascinated by it. And like you said, you had to go back and do the prequels so that we could then trace everything to the redemption. Because how
Mhm.
do we have redemption if I don't understand what was
Right,
the initial acorn or the seed that got
right,
her to this place?
right.
So,
Because it talks about, Jezebel also talks about basically generational curses, because that's what it was. And that seed started with the grandmother of, the mother of Jezebel and the grandmother of the daughter.
mhm,
And so just those generational curses, and also a touch of mental illness, because I believe that, especially in the black and brown community, we don't see enough. I know we're seeing more and more books that talk about it now, which I'm thrilled about personally, because that is something that's very real. And there's several different forms, and people don't understand. People just want to say, oh, that person's just crazy, that person's just mean. Well, I think more people are mostly, more and more people today know more about um, bipolar disorder, because we're seeing that more often. But there is a personality disorder, there's a mood disorder. I mean, and that's kind of, bipolar kind of encompasses all of that, but there's still unspecified, specific types of mood disorders that people have, you know. Um, with with me, I suffer from panic disorder, chronic panic disorder. It is a disorder I've had for going on 27 years. I believe God is healing me of that disorder. So I do not claim it, but
yes.
I was diagnosed with it 27 years ago. And I know that it stems from, which is why I went back to school to study psychology. I needed to know, to understand what was going on with me and how to fight it. My oldest daughter suffered from bipolar. I needed to know what she was going through. How do I help her? So I went back to school, you know.
Now, and Jack, I take a breath because one, I want to applaud you for opening up to share that, you suffer from chronic panic disorder and that you suffered from this for 27 years. And, and let me be just a fan now and just a regular person too. Um, when we look at individuals who are celebrity personalities, is I guess the correct term now, is your personality. We don't, sometimes we forget that they're human beings also, and that they struggle with some of the same things that we struggle with as just a regular old person. And so to hear you talk about, well, first of all, as I said, you've got 85 plus books that have already been published. I know you, so I know you're working on a gazillion more because you have your goal, but your goal is constantly changing too. Even though you haven't said that to me, but it has to because new opportunities are coming and you want to work in that opportunity. So, but given all of that, it may be hard for the audience to understand how someone who is such a prolific writer could struggle with chronic panic disorder for almost 3 decades and still be successful. So help the audience to understand how you were able to continue to work your craft and be successful in this arena as far as work while you struggled with the person, which is Jackie.
Well, with me, I kept it a secret for so long because I was ashamed. And I'm not one for being a victim. And so I wasn't going to share that part of my life because I thought it would make me look weak and readers wouldn't, want to read me because people think you're crazy or whatever when you develop with panic disorder basically can come out of nowhere. It could also have a genetic disconnect, but it can just you can develop it. It can be learned behavior. I believe that mine was a little bit of both. I believe that it was a little bit of a genetic thing because there are other relatives that suffer from panic disorder in my family, but also because my grandmother taught me to fear, and those fears became irrational because what happens is your thought behavior changes when you learn something, and when your mind always takes you to the worst case scenario, you're training your mind to do that. So what happened, and I'm not blaming my grandmother by any means, let me be clear about this. My grandmother was wonderful, but she was afraid of a lot of things. She had a lot of fears, and I feel like she may have suffered a little bit from panic disorder. She would call it hyperventilating because I remember my aunt having to calm her down and her blowing into a paper bag. So I believe she was having panic attacks.
Okay.
So, but they didn't talk about that back then.
Yeah.
And so for me, I didn't talk about it. I wrote, I would write and I would kind of write my way through it. I have journals where I've written letters to God, like why I feel like I'm dying. And of course my brain would go to the worst case scenario. And it wasn't until I was getting my master's in psychology. And that's when I fully understood because I actually, one of my first papers was on panic disorder because I needed to understand and I needed to fight it. And so what I realized was that I had to retrain my brain. Now, let me backtrack a little bit before I even got to that point. There was a period a few years ago, around 2014, 15, 16, I kind of disappeared from the literary world. And it was because I was really struggling with panic disorder. I was having them so frequently. I would wake up in the middle of the night. I couldn't sit in traffic. I basically, my home was my safe space. Well, it developed into agoraphobia. I could not leave my home for a year. And I would respond to invites. Oh, I'm booked that day. I'm not going to be able to, make this event, but consider me for the next year. So basically I was lying to people. I couldn't go on tour. I couldn't tell my publishers. I couldn't tell my agent. I just could not cope. And so I shut down. And my doctor's like, you need help. And I didn't want to see a shrink because I'm like, I'm not crazy, but I felt like I was crazy because, again, we would be in a car, and if traffic's like stopped, how rush hour, and you can't go anywhere, all of a sudden I would feel like I couldn't breathe, and I was claustrophobic, and I couldn't sit in traffic. My husband almost jumped out of the car one day. I couldn't go in a tunnel. We were, I think, going to Virginia Beach, and I'm like, stop the car, stop the car. And he's like, I can't stop here. And I almost jumped out. He had to grab me. And that's when I just shut down, didn't want to go anywhere, didn't want to travel. And I love to travel. On planes, I actually got off a plane one time. We were heading to a book event, and it was so many people. I'm like, they're trying to get on, I'm trying to get off. My husband was sitting there, he would not get off the plane. And I'm out there at that point, I'm like this and trying to get myself together. I thought he was going to come out, but he didn't. And that was the smartest thing for him not to do, was not come after me, because I wouldn't have gotten back on the plane. But because he was on the plane, the steward's like, we're going to have to close it. And I think she knew. So she started, she just kind of talked to me, and she's like, just breathe. And she's like, we're going to have to close the door soon. She goes, is that your husband? And I'm like, yes. She said, he's not going to get off the plane. And so I went, and I was like just trembling. And I just started crying because I'm like, God, I can't live this way. You gave me this gift of writing, but I can't, and I couldn't do it. So I wasn't writing during that time either. I could not do anything. So at that point, my doctor put me on medication, my primary care physician. But, and that helped, but I mostly slept. And so my husband was like, she's sleeping a lot. He said, just, she needs to let her, you know. And so, but it wasn't until one day I tried to leave my room, and I couldn't. So not only was I a prisoner in my house for a year, I couldn't go from my room to the kitchen. I was in my room. It was my sanctuary. So I lived in my room for a year. They brought me my food to my room. It was horrible. And I was angry with God because I couldn't understand why he wouldn't just take this away from me, you know? But during that time, that's when I decided to enroll in school online to study psychology. So I actually have a bachelor's in psychology too, because I started with a bachelor's, then I went on and got my master's. But after that year, I knew that enough about cognitive thought behavior, and changing your thought behavior and this and that. And I tried to do it on my own, but I couldn't. So I reached out and I found a therapist.
Jack, I just realized I forgot to say to you, now, how can the audience follow you? How do they keep up with what you're doing?
Well, I'm on Facebook under Jacquelin Wright. So I guess that's at Jacquelin Wrights, but I'm on Facebook, author Jacquelin Thomas. I'm also, my website is www.jacquelin-thomas.com. I'm also on Instagram under Jacquelin Thomas and Twitter under Jacquelin Thomas. And I'm also on Clubhouse. If you're on Clubhouse, I'm on Clubhouse as well under Jacquelin Thomas.
Now, I know they're going to be reaching out to you, Jackie, and I can't wait to hear the testimonials. from your audience and for those who will actually hear us a little later. So we'll get back together. I'm going to hold you to perhaps having the God Box party. So stay
Oh,
tuned.
yes, we definitely need to do that because again, manifestation, God is really manifesting things. We prayed last week for a young man who was diagnosed with cancer, and they were saying, we don't know how long that you are going to have to live. And we got the testimony on Friday. This was Monday during our Bible study on Elijah. On Friday, the young lady came back and said, we went to the doctor yesterday. They did the x-rays. 3 doctors came in and said, apparently you've been healed.
My Lord.
So when I tell you, trust God, trust him, not straddle the fence where I kind of trust him. You got to holy trust him completely because he honors faith. So even mustard seed faith, he honors faith. So definitely. But you also got to do what you're supposed to be doing. You can't just use them as an ATM machine. You got to
No.
do what you're supposed to do, but put your request to the Father because He is answering. He is answering. I've been seeing it, hearing it, miracles. He is still doing miracles.
Well, we've heard it with Jackie. He's in the miracle answering business still, and I am going to put my request in my God box. It may not be as pretty as some other folks' box. That she
Girl.
said you can use a jar or whatever, but I'm going to put it in there. And then
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna sit back and date it, guys. Now, this is what I always say: date it so you remember when
Yeah.
you did it. So in that,
Yes.
and then just wait to see when he does it.
And then date it and write down the way He answered it on the back.
Hmm.
And then you put that in your praise box.
Amen.
Because when you're going through hard times, you can go through your praise box and see all the ways that He answered you before, which helps to reinforce your faith.
Come on with it, Jackie. Come on with it, Jackie. That's a sermon all in itself. We've got to have something to fall back on. And what better thing to fall back on is his promises and see how he's already done it before. So we know that he'll do it again.
Mm-hmm.
Well, well, Jackie, we weren't going to preach here at the kitchen table, but sometimes he comes in and he gives it to us in a way that people can understand it, and that's
Yeah.
exactly what you've done. You've given it to us in a different way, and so I thank him for utilizing you in that manner. Just thank you
Me
so much.
too. Me too. Me
All
too.
right, then, Jackie. Until next time, we'll be hopping back on again because I got to let them know about the new book that's coming. And then, as Jackie said,
Okay.
we're going to do a God Box party. You heard it
Mm-hmm.
here. So just know in the future, you have to tell people what that means. But we're going to do a God Box party because I think that's
Mm-hmm.
something that people will really benefit from. And we need to hear good news and sharing the good news of God. So
Yes. Yes.
thank you again, Jackie. Well, we're back. And so I've got my turnip fries that I cut into wedges and I baked them. I basted them really what I did was I melted a little coconut oil and I put oregano, salt, pepper, Himalayan salt, pink salt, a little pepper, a little cayenne pepper, garlic, and onion powder. So I wanted them to be spicy, and I think I put a pinch of cumin. And so I baked them in the oven at 400 degrees. After they've been in for about 25 minutes, I turned them over and I basted them again with the oil and the spices so that they would be, the oil and the spices would get on both sides. After they were finished cooking, I turned on the broiler so that they would brown some, and they were under the broiler for about 1 minute. Now, this is one of the steaks that I cooked prior to putting on the steak. I really am looking forward to seeing how this tastes. I gotta call Mama because Mama likes a steak, and I forgot to tell her that I was cooking steak today. So let's see if we can get Mama on the phone. She may say she ain't gonna talk to me no more. I've been calling her a lot lately, but you know how mamas are. They always say that Oh, she may not talk to me. Oh, this may be during her one-on-one time. It seems like if I can't get Mama, I always get my sister. I just don't know what be happening with them. Hello?
Are you talking smack about me?
Well, I am. I guess I'm going to get you instead of Mama. Hey, man. Hey, sis.
Hi, love. Yeah, Mama's doing her meditation right now.
So
you can definitely call her back later to chat.
Well, I guess I'll talk to you since you're
No,
there.
there's no need for that.
Oh, so I can't talk to you? Okay, but anyway, I'm talking to you on camera. So anyway, let me tell you what I made. I made steak. This is real food. I made steak that I marinated, teriyaki steak, and I made turnip fries. So I was going to tell Mama about it because, Mama always likes a steak. And so I was like, well, let me tell Mama about my steak that I made.
Yeah, steak sounds good. I don't know about them turnip fries.
You don't know about
them in the air fryer?
No, I actually cooked them in the oven.
Oh, well, you have to send a picture so we can see what they look like.
I will, and I've cooked them before.
Do it actually taste like turnip?
I'm sorry, I'm eating this steak right now. That is very, very good. I wanted it to be a little pinker, but it's not as pink as I wanted it to be. But we still have a little pinkness there. But I wanted it to be pinker. But we got a little pink. Mm-hmm. And what's that noise in the background?
Notification on my phone, Nosy.
Oh, it's a notification on your phone. You see how she treats me?
Or notification, as Alexis would say. The notification.
Well, you see how they treat me, guys. You see how, like I tell you, you think Mama's something. My sister is even more something. But I'm going to taste the turnip fries now. They're good. Still slightly pepperish. And actually, it has a little slight sweetness. I'll tell you. About before 9/11, I stopped eating processed foods. It's a long story. And when I would eat a baked potato, I could taste the sweetness in it. And I can taste with this turnip, I can taste the sweetness. And I don't know if I would have tasted the sweetness if I had just basically boiled them and did them like you would do them if you're going to have salad. But they are really good. Angelia?
Yes, you definitely got to take a picture and send it so we can see what they look like.
I will. And you guys are really missing out. I still get a little bit of that peppery. Now, some people think that turnips are bitter, but it's the peppery flavor that you're getting. So this is really good. And for those of you who would like to have a piece of garlic bread, garlic toast, a yeast roll, I'm not going to tell you shouldn't, because you are eating turnips. So you have to make that decision yourself. But I will tell you this, the turnips are a healthy alternative to a potato. And this steak is lean. It is very good. And as I told you, I didn't add any salt, and I didn't, because I don't taste any salt. So I only use those ingredients that I mentioned. And as I said, I put about a teaspoon of honey because I wanted the natural ingredients to be there so that the steak itself had a chance to breathe and just come to life. So this is really good. And I hear you, Angelia. You said I've got to take a picture and send it to you guys, and I will. And tell Mama that she missed out. I was grilling. And what she doesn't realize, but she does realize, Santa bought me a Ninja grill for Christmas, last Christmas. And so I was using that grill. And I know she would be so happy that I was using the grill that Santa brought me. And I could tell you that everything turned out just great. And so I'll holler at you guys later, okay?
Bye.
Okay. Bye. Well, like I told you, if Mama's not available, I knew my sister was going to be available. It seems that it always works out that way. But this is really good. The steak and then the turnip fries. You can't go wrong. Try the turnip fries. You'll like them.
Are you tired of eating bland, boring, healthy meals? Well, imagine if you could indulge in mouth-watering recipes that are both healthy and flavorful. Now you can, thanks to Dr. TAS. In her new cookbook, Transform With TAS, Healthy Recipes, Dr. TAS reveals her secrets to transforming everyday recipes into wholesome, delicious creations. You'll enjoy your favorite comfort foods guilt-free without sacrificing flavor. Dr. TAS has not only made Southern classics delectable, but also turn them into protein-packed, nutritious powerhouses. With each bite, you'll be nourishing your body and satisfying your taste buds. Cooking healthy meals doesn't have to be a chore. It can be a joyous experience with bold, crave-worthy flavors. Dr. TAS shares her insider tips and tricks for crafting protein-rich dishes that will leave you wanting more. Don't miss out on this culinary adventure that your taste buds won't soon forget. Get your copy of Transform with TAS Healthy Recipes today.
So now if you want me to transform your recipe, you know what you have to do. You've got to send me an email to transformwithtas@gmail.com. Put recipe in the subject line. Make sure you include your first and last name and of course the recipe. And you never know when your recipe may be featured on Transform with TAS, where we are feeding our bodies healthy foods that are good foods, but kind of bad, healthy, good, bad food. And we are feeding our soul. Well, this has been a wonderful show. I hope you'll take an opportunity to try the steak, grilling it on the grill, whether it's an indoor grill or outdoor grill, and please try the turnip fries. I was saying to some folks, you can even sprinkle a little Parmesan cheese on there. They are really, really good. And that just adds to the depth of flavor and just adds a little saltiness to it. Because like I said, I don't think I put much salt on that either, but it's good. With Transform with TAS, it's all about moving to the next level, whether that's with your physical health or your spiritual health. So until next time, take care of you by looking inward and determining whether or not you're putting the right things in your body, your physical body, and the right things into your spiritual body. Because when the two are in alignment, you really can't go wrong. So until next time, take care of you. Bye now.